on board while we are moving forward. So let me first start by a very important aspect is to thank our partners that helped to convey the message, to share about this event. So we have the Grand Hyatt Singapore, we have the Pledge on Food Waste, we have Living Labs Federation in Singapore, we have Survival Chic as well, La French Tech, and last but not least, Bisou, that is helping us to spread and raise awareness around the topic of sustainability and in particular around food. So without further ado, most of you have never heard of us, actually, Light Blue Who. Light Blue is a company that I started about 7-8 years ago, initially coming from hotel sustainability, looking at anything from waste to energy to staff awareness, guest engagement, and starting with this moment of realization, looking at bins that were actually full of food and asking those simple questions to the guys, like how much food is going there and where is it coming from and what and why and how much does it cost you, and this basically led to, you know, curiosity. Then I was puzzled, and then I was angry, annoyed, and then decided to start doing something about it. And project after project, we now have run like around 45 of them in 8 different countries, specifically on the topic of food waste. We have been working historically mainly with hotels. Then about 2-3 years ago, we started with restaurants and canteens. Now we're moving to higher education, culinary institutes, destination, working with development agencies and government agencies, and we estimate that we help around 1 million kilos of food from going to the bin. Very hard to track precisely, but that's within, I would say, this range. Why are we here? Just a few words before like going into the topic itself. We here because we have some good news and some bad news. Let me start with the bad news. The bad news is that situation is bad, and I'm talking here in terms of climate change, loss of biodiversity, and all the major challenges that we're going to face as a society if we are not acting quickly. And the important aspect here, one of the focus is to be able to highlight the connections between our behavior, being like at home or at work or when we run a business, a food business, and the implication it has. That's kind of the bad news, because I mean, climate change is there. It's not going to go away just because we look the other way. But the good news is that something is possible. It's still possible to act. And I want to share as well some very tangible, practical, I would say, tips, solutions, methodologies. Of course, we can't cover everything in such a short time frame, but the idea is to be able to open up on there are solutions existing, and things it's possible to start doing something about it. So what are we going to be looking at today? It's a rather extensive, I would say, menu. From food, the connection between food and sustainability. Then we're going to look at the situation of Singapore in particular. Then zooming into the topic of the food waste in food service, restaurants and hotels in particular, and the misconceptions that we see like repeating itself on and on. Cost of food waste, how to monitor food waste, then the enterprise development grants that are available for companies registered in Singapore. And we're going to finish as well with the Pledge on Food Waste certification system. We're going to have 3 special guests today, which is going to be pretty exciting. We have Chef Lucas from the Grand Hyatt. We have Chef Amerigo from Gem Michelin star restaurants in Bangkok. And we have Chef Jesper, that is global coordinator for the Pledge on Food Waste. So I would like to start with the big picture. And I think it's quite important just to reminder very I would say simply, we were all born in this system that we haven't designed ourselves, where we are being taught that you want food, you go and buy it, you eat it, and then whatever you don't want or whatever remains, you dispose it. And that works for anything that is our global linear economic model. Extract, product, distribute, consume, dispose. As if as if the earth was flat. Unfortunately, it's not the case. So we can't continue indefinitely like that. But what is interesting is to see that food waste in itself is somehow a byproduct of this mindset and those systems that we're applying to our food system. So this linear economic model, the consequences of this model, one of it is waste, and food waste is one major component, and as we will see, represent multiple challenges that as a society we must address. An interesting factor is to realize as well that food is actually the only component, the only element that is connecting the 17 SDGs, ranging from the biosphere, so the SDGs, UN Sustainable Development Goals, ranging from the biosphere level to the society level to the economy level, and everything that connect all of them, which I find very interesting, because as coming from a developed nation, it's very difficult to, especially if you're not born in a context where you are in direct contact with food production. Let's say you were born on a farm or in a family that is growing food. We are so remote, so disconnected, that we tend to forget everything that is needed, all the resources that are needed to produce food. And we're gonna look at some particularly, I would say, disturbing figures related to food waste that would help as well to kind of set the scene before we dive into more practical, I would say, solutions or systems. First is what we call the food waste paradox. Many of you may have heard that food waste represents roughly 1/3 of all the food that we produce, or roughly 1.3 billion tons. Truth is, it's very difficult for the FAO to estimate how much is generated worldwide. I mean, it's not as if we had meters everywhere and we could really see what is happening, but it gives a good range, and it's crazy when you think about it. 1/3 of everything we produce is lost, is just like completely out of proportion, especially when you know that there is roughly I would say, so 1/3 is lost, and there is roughly 850 to 900 million people that do not eat enough. And the issue is not only about not accessing food, but it's to access quality food. And that has multiple consequences on obesity, on all like health issues that are additional burden for our society. So there is this double component. If we were basically to address food waste, it would be enough to feed 10 times the population of the US. So we don't really have an issue of are we producing enough? The issue is that we are producing enough, but we are losing a great deal of it, and we don't know how to capture it and basically distribute it where it should. Other component related to food waste is the environmental impact, or the so-called carbon footprint of food waste. If food waste was a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of carbon emission after China and the US. It represents roughly 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions. 8% of greenhouse gas emissions is roughly the equivalent of 2.5 times the global emission for the airline industry, for instance. Some estimate that this has been widely underestimated because of all the other attached, I would say, components that would increase the overall footprint of food waste. And we're gonna have a quick look at that in a few minutes. The other environmental impact of food waste, which I think is very important to keep in mind, are related to, so food waste, the equivalent of what is lost in food waste represent 19% of all the fertilizer that are used globally. Represent as well 18% of all cropland, 21% of all the landfill volume, and 21% of all fresh water. So those proportions are gigantic. That means that the overall impact of food waste simply through the environmental lens is actually massive. Then come an exercise that I personally particularly enjoy, and I would like you to just jump in. So don't hesitate to send some of your answers directly on the chat. I would like to get a sense of do you know how much water is needed to produce those, I would say, typical ingredients that for most of us are part of our daily diet or almost. So I'm curious to know, do you know, like here the study is showing how much water was needed from the moment you had to sow the seed to the moment you're actually consuming the product. So for instance, for coffee, do you guys know how much liter are necessary to produce 1 cup of coffee? So you can send some of your answers on the chat. And I'm curious to see if you have come across those sort of figures before. So let's start. 100 liter for Brice. Any other idea? 50, 500 from Rem, 30. Okay, let's see. For coffee, we're gonna give you an indication. 132. I know. Someone said 10,000 liters. That's a lot of water for 1 cup of coffee. So no, bit less. 132 liters. What about a glass of milk? Glass of milk. Any wild guess? Don't worry. 500 from Brice. 150 Armand. 0.025, almost, but actually quite 100 times more. 255 liters for milk. I have a good news for you. Wine. Wine is only 109 liters necessary to produce 1 glass of wine. So you can go ahead. What about tea? Tea is the lowest one. I will keep the worst part for the end. 27 liters. Pizza. I don't know if there are some of our friends from Italy. 1 kilo of pizza. How much liter do you think it requires? Can go wild. There's no punishment. 75, 250, 600. Double. 1,259 liters of water are necessary to produce 1 kilo of pizza. I was having that conversation with students in F&B, master students in Italy, and I was asking them that question. They're like, "Yeah, what sort of pizza are we talking about?" I'm like, okay, that's just an average. Then, okay, let me give you a few other indicators like corn. So it takes 1,222, bread 1,600 liters to produce 1 kilo of bread. Cheese 3,178 liters. What about chicken? For the chicken lovers? Okay, I'm helping you out. 4,325. Yes, a lot is a good answer as well, Brice. What about chocolate? I told you I had some good news and bad news. This is part of the bad news. Chocolate is wild. Too much is correct. Jeffrey said 5,000 is more than that. Marina, 5,000 more than that. Dark chocolate, yes. 10,000 more than that. Even more, yes, that's completely almost. Marina said 1 million. Jennifer, no. 20,000 is almost there. 17,196 liters are necessary to produce 1 kilo of chocolate. I mean, that's completely off the chart, and something that is important to keep in mind for chocolate lovers like me. It's totally depressing. So go more towards the wine instead of the chocolate, at least on the water consumption side. I shouldn't say that. Now on the financial aspect of food waste. This is a very interesting study by the Boston Consulting Groups that was published in 2018. That they call the food waste a $1.5 trillion problem. It currently estimated that it costs $1.2 trillion. We are gearing towards $1.5 trillion. But at the same time, they call it a $700 billion opportunity, which is super cool to know. That means that, again, like, well, we are facing a topic or an issue that has hardly been addressed. but the opportunities are everywhere. And I especially want to point to one aspect in particular, which is the awareness raising. They categorize what could be the most promising way to address food waste, looking really at the big picture. Raising awareness is on the top. And this is a bit like what we are doing today, to understand the consequences and all the impacts related to food waste help already to address it. And we will see how in specifically in food operation, how does that translate. But I find it very interesting, like beyond the tech, beyond the improvement on the supply chain or policies, etc., awareness. I would like, before covering more specifically the aspect of food waste in Singapore, taking just a quick moment on the food supply chain, and to kind of put the frame around this topic. There are several steps. It's a very long food supply chain most of the time. That goes from the primary production or extraction when it comes to fish. Then we go to storage, then we go to processing, then we go to transportation, then we go to either food service or retail, then it goes to the consumer. Knowing that between basically each of those steps, there is transport, more or less. And COVID hit and technically has almost like, I would say, stopped this entire options for all this food being produced. So that's why there has been so many examples of highlighting how not resilient our food supply chain is and our distribution model. And I think it has really shown that there is a need to rethink the way we produce, the way we consume, and the proximity between the food produced and who is eating it. This study from WRI, World Resource Institute, helped as well to highlight when does food waste occur along the supply chain. And it highlights, depending on which geographical region, what is actually lost or wasted from production, handling and storage, processing, distribution and market, and consumption. And we start from the right-hand side with Sub-Saharan Africa, going all the way to North America and Oceania. And what you see on that specific comparison study is that depending on the level of income of countries, there is a complete reverse or there is a very different explanation of where is food waste actually happening or when actually. And as you see, like from the lowest income countries, it usually related to production, handling and storage, like Sub-Saharan Africa, 70% plus of all this food waste is happening at this level. That means even haven't reached the processing level. In other countries like North America, all the food waste is happening, or 60% of it in that case is happening at the consumption level. That means that they are very efficient with all the prior steps. And then when it comes to eating, that's where there is like this huge amount of food that is lost in this type of countries. Another interesting information on this is how much is actually lost or wasted out of the total amount of food that is available. So you see, like there are two different components. There is the when on, if you look at the supply chain, and then there is the how much does that represent out of everything that is produced. So for Latin America, they estimate like food waste represent 15% of the total amount of food that is produced, 17% for South and Southeast Asia, 19% for North Africa, West and Central Asia, 22% in Europe, 23% in Sub-Saharan Africa, 25% in industrialized Asia, where Singapore belongs to, and 42% for North America and Oceania. 42% of all the food that is produced. Just completely insane. So that was kind of a quick overview of the supply chain in general. I would like to, as most of you in the audience today are actually from Singapore, would like to kind of draw a picture of the current situation, because that helps as well to understand that the food waste issue is a pressing one for Singapore. It's not like you don't have the luxury that other countries may have because of for different reasons. The first one is more than 90% of all the food you're consuming is actually imported. It means like not homegrown. That means that you are highly reliant on getting food inside for the type of consumption that you currently have. And that means that for what we have seen and observing with the pandemic, the disruption to the food supply chain can have pretty dramatic consequences on the population, on the food, on the stability, and on the food security. So 90% of all the food is imported, and keeping in mind as well that if it is imported, that means that it has traveled. If it has traveled, that means it has a much larger carbon footprint. Another important aspect for Singapore is that, well, on a daily basis, there is 2,000 tons of waste that are sent to Simacao. So for those of you that are not familiar with Simacao, Simacao is the floating island, the garbage island as it's called, because the current system in Singapore is that whatever cannot be recycled is currently being incinerated. And what the byproduct of this incineration then is actually sent to that floating island and being disposed of. And then there are some it's a way to handle the waste. Another interesting factor is that out of all the food waste that is generated, there is only 18% that is actually recycled. So you import most of the food, like a vast majority of it. Whatever is not consumed, very small fraction of it is actually recycled. And at the same time, whatever remains is burned and then is being sent on this island. Issue is the island cannot expand, indefinitely. And that's why there are some I would say, alarming figures that I would like to share with you. In 2019, Singapore was had produced 744 million kilos of food waste. That was for Singapore alone. That represents approximately 130 to 140 kilos per person per year. The cost is around $342 million a year. I personally, from other studies, believe that is widely underestimated. 744 million kilos of food should actually cost much more than that. But those are the official figures. Official figures as well show that it's only 10% of all food, of all waste generated that is actually coming from food, which is much lower than other countries. And again, I think that the reality is probably a bit higher than that, but the sources are hard to find. One concerning factor is that the trend is wrong. The trend is going upward in terms of volume of food waste generated per capita, per person living in Singapore. Over the past 10 years, we're talking on plus 20%. That means that this is kind of raising the flag. And we're talking about that current system that is designed where food waste is incinerated and then being sent to Simacao. Bad news is we are 2021. There is roughly 14 years to go until the Simacao Island is actually full. So, I mean, the clock is ticking, and that's why that's also why we're here today. But I wanted to share with you this kind of background picture to help to get you to connect, especially if you live in Singapore, to connect the topic that we will be exploring now in the context of food services, restaurants, hotels, canteens, with the bigger picture of the context of the city-states that you're living in. The government decided as well to set some clear legislation, looking at those figures and the time that is currently passing by. There is the RSA, the Resource Sustainability Act, that was enacted in 2019, that kind of forces the large commercial and industrial premises to allocate space for on-site food waste treatment systems. There is as well, from 2024, shopping malls, hotels, food factories, and multi-user factories above a certain size will have to actually segregate their food waste for treatment. It will be compulsory. So that means that if you are within this sort of business, it's not like in 10 years time. We're talking about 3 years time where you know how it works. Legislation, once it's kicking in, then we're talking about penalties and other fines. The government has really shown a strong push, especially recently. I'm sure you have heard about the Singapore Green Plan. There's this national agenda on sustainable development with clear targets. They want to reduce the amount of waste sent to Simacao by 20% within actually 5 years. And the goal is to reach 30% reduction by 2030. And then there are other targets, such as amount of park. There is some targets in terms of carbon emission. There is this very ambitious target of producing 30% of all nutritional needs by 2030, and to have at least 1/5 of all schools to be carbon neutral within 2030 as well. So that's super encouraging, and that really shows that this is where everybody should go. Now let's dive more specifically on the topic of food waste in food service operation in hotels and restaurants. And I would like to tackle a few misconceptions that we have seen on and on and on. So I was sharing from the beginning that this is a topic I've been working now on for the past 7 to 8 years. So we really had time to go in depth and spend thousands of hours at the back of house. And we have seen most of those situations. First sort of reaction that we get is like, oh, it doesn't seem that we have much food waste, which means that the assessment of the performance of the organization, let's say it's a restaurant, is just relying on the observation. What we see is that we always ask that question before actually implementing detailed food waste monitoring system, and there is always a gap. We call it the perception gap, where the quantity estimated are actually 3 to 8 times lower than the actual quantities measured. So there is this huge discrepancy between what the perception of the reality versus what is really happening. Another very important misconception here, which is about the buffet. You know, when you ask that, and not only like to people from the street, but as well for I would say professionals that haven't spent or put effort in looking into that topic, tend to believe that the main culprit is the buffet. Buffet is a visible part. So sure, buffet is actually as well the most expensive type of food that you can waste, because it has gone through all the different steps. But in volume, and especially in that case, we have most of our studies that are from hotels. It represents only 10 to 20% of all food wasted by hotels. That means that the other biggest chunk is actually lost even before the consumer. So almost systematically, we see that 50% of all the food waste is happening pre-consumer at the storage or the preparation level. Then there is an important aspect as well. When you start comparing the amount of food waste to the total volume of food that was purchased, and here we're talking about kilos, it ranges between 25 to 42%. That means that there is close to 1/3, that is pretty similar to the global picture, close to 1/3 of all food purchased in volume that actually would end up in the bin in a situation where there is no specific food waste monitoring system in place. And the last component, this misconception, this belief that food waste is a minimal, is marginal cost. It's nothing to really bother about. It's time consuming, and the effort are not worth the benefit. When you start implementing detailed food waste audits and start putting a dollar figure and apply very strict standards to calculate the cost of food waste, then you see that the end cost is just staggering. We're looking at between 6 to 14% of the revenue of certain outlets, to give you a sense of, this is not just peanuts, you know, this is not just like small change. It is a serious chunk of your profitability that is going straight to the bin. Do we have Chef Lucas with us?
Hi, Benjamin. Good afternoon. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you, Chef. I was concerned for a moment. I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to, to handle it myself. Well, welcome, Chef. I'm very happy that you managed to make it today and to share your experience Chef Lucas, just to give a bit of context before I ask you some questions. So Chef Lucas is Director of Culinary Operation for Singapore and Southeast Asia at Hyatt, as well as the Executive Chef of the Grand Hyatt in Singapore. More than 35 years of experience leading the Grand Hyatt Singapore journey since 2002. Historically coming from many fine dining restaurants, from Le Gavroche in London, 3 stars, the Brown's restaurant, best restaurant in Australia, in Melbourne. First hotel as well to have a fully connected food waste vacuum food waste management system, leading all the way to the basement where there is a biodigester. And as well, recipient of the Marine Stewardship Council Hospitality Star Award. Wow. So, Chef, thank you so much for being here. I have a few questions that I would like to ask you. First, like, with all your years of experience, what is I would say your perspective on food waste?
Well, I suppose, as you mentioned before, everyone thinks it's not an issue or that it's well managed in their operation. But I think we've sort of identified in our operation, maybe hotels run larger operations in standalone restaurants, but it's all very relevant. Yeah, there's a lot of waste that goes through the system, and depending where you start to measure waste, whether you measure it at the farm with the waste of the farmer's time or importing product into Singapore. There's a huge amount of waste in the system that can be very, very lucrative if you manage it effectively. And I think over the years, you know, when I first sort of entered kitchens many years ago, maybe the mindset was different. There were different people entering the industry that had a different expectation, and waste was different then. I mean, we've always had waste at a certain level in kitchens, but when I sort of first entered them, waste was very minimal. You'll use one part of the fish or an animal in one area and maybe another part somewhere else, and kind of what went through the system and ended up as waste was minimized. However, now with different concepts and people's eating habits, people's expectation and dietary restraints, I mean, there's a lot of food that goes through the system and comes out the end and is either potentially still perfectly edible, and it's money. It's, you know, you wouldn't be throwing your own money in the bin, but we're potentially throwing significant amount of money in the bin every day that could be reduced. And if you want to reduce your waste, the knock-on effect is reducing energy costs. That's less food you need to cook. You're reducing your labor costs as well. I mean, who in hospitality doesn't want to spend a bit more time at home rather than slaving away in the kitchen all day? So there's a huge opportunity to reduce this, and I think you know, when we partnered with you, it's opened our eyes to give us an opportunity to manage our waste, and we probably haven't had something as analytical as that before, being able to use data to our advantage. I suppose that old school chef who's very confident and he or she knows what guests want and what they want on the menu, but this has identified that there is certainly opportunities for reduction in production, and as I said before, that can be very, very lucrative to an operation, and depending on the scale, whether it's a single restaurant or if you're running multiple operations, there's a lot of money to be saved at the end of the day. And if that goes straight to the bottom line, you're not serving any more customers, you're not cooking any more food. However, you're a lot more profitable, and I think that's the aim of the game in business, is to make money. So
yeah, that's right. Chef, what would you say to chefs that think that they have no food waste, that it's not something that they should be concerned about?
I mean, every operation is different, and every chef has their own opinion, and we need to be empathetic to that. But I think you need to define what waste is, and if there is food going through your restaurant and it's coming out the end at either production waste or plate waste that's coming back on a guest plate, and there's, you know, if it's bones or something that's inedible, then obviously that you can't measure that as something that's edible waste. But if maybe there's an opportunity to review portions. I mean, there's waste at many different levels, and I don't think any chef is in denial that they do have waste. It's just a matter of how much waste do they have. Yeah, I think we've used lots of tools here to reduce our waste, which has shown a lot of success. And as I said, through maybe portion control, or even the old school, just talking to your customers about their preference, what they like, what their dislikes are. Menu engineering is another tool that we use here in the hotel to reduce waste. And I suppose many years ago, menus were crafted on maybe greatest hits of what a chef thought customers in the environment wanted. And now we use menu engineering, and our menus now are a very well crafted tool of exactly what the guests are after. And so that's eliminated a lot of waste. And then any waste that does come through the system, then we can micromanage that and divert it to other areas. Sometimes we repurpose some of our excess food, which is also waste. At least it's sort of not going to landfill. I saw some of your images before. You know, Singapore's only getting smaller. It's not going to get bigger. So yeah, if we can manage this a bit more, micromanage it on a daily basis, there's a great opportunity at the end of it.
Was it your initiative to have this fully connected food waste management system? Is it something that was, or was it a collective sort of initiative?
It was a team effort. So our vacuum waste system in the hotel, we have a vacuum waste system in all of our back of house areas, at our dishwashing, where our dishwashers are. And I suppose in a restaurant, where the service team would come in, maybe scrape the plates and put the waste into the rubbish bin. That rubbish bin's replaced with a vacuum waste machine, and it's sucked down to our basement. It goes through a dewatering system, then into a digester. And we've, a hotel this size, where we have somewhere between 500 and 1,000 kilos of waste a day, depending on the operation and how many guests we have here. We've managed to remove all of our food waste going into landfill, which was a great achievement from the team to remove it from landfill. It gets turned into fertilizer, and that product is used on our gardens in the hotel. And then any excess fertilizer, then we pass it on into the community to other people. So yeah, it's also a matter of what do you do with your waste once it's identified as waste, and it can't be repurposed or consumed through other means. How do you manage that waste? And in our hotel, yeah, we turn it into fertilizer.
No, that's that. I was super impressed. First time I saw it. I would like to ask you as well a different angle. Do you see as like the hotel and all the things you have been implementing to be more responsible, is it a driver for revenue? Does it attract a different type of crowd? Do you benefit as well from this, I would say, from a revenue perspective rather than on cost-cutting perspective?
I think when you're looking to create preference and you're looking to attract customers to your business, you need to be unique. If you need to stand out from the crowd, and you don't want to be in that sea of sameness. If we look at Singapore and we look at hotels, which is where we operate, every hotel in Singapore is amazing. They've got amazing design, amazing food. And how do we stand out in that crowd there? How are we going to be attractive to our customers? I mean, every international brand is here, and they're all represented, and they all do an amazing job. However, how do we create preference in that? How are we going to attract customers into our organisation? So we believe using sustainable methods, the way we procure our product, the items that we have on our menu, and then being honest and upfront of how we measure our waste and what we do with it as well, and sharing that with our customers has been quite a powerful experience, because generally most customers, in wherever they are in the world, they want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So we find by sharing a lot of our sort of sustainable stories that we've achieved in our hotel and with our company, sort of helps us to create preference, gives a lot of repeat business, and makes us quite attractive to other customers as well. So in a very sort of busy market like Singapore, where You know, it's a very sort of busy destination location. Obviously, pre-COVID, when there were more customers coming in, but yeah, our like all business is to create preference, and you want customers to come back. So definitely there, incrementally, there's an opportunity to generate revenue, but also probably the largest opportunity we've seen is the saving, when we are able to identify what our waste is and where it goes. And every kilo of food you purchase and it goes through your system and comes out the other end as waste is an opportunity to make a reduction. And if you look at, you know, just pluck a figure out of what 1 kilo of food costs, if it costs $10 as a guide across the board, the average price of produce that you purchase, and you do the numbers by the amount of sort of waste that goes through your system, I mean, you can see the numbers, and that goes straight to the bottom line. So you've not cooked another meal, you've not attracted one more customer, you're just more in line with cooking for your business levels and maybe the customers that you have in your hotel or restaurant that day.
Fantastic, Chef. We are exactly on time. I wanted to ask you more questions. The audience, if you have some questions for Chef, please send it over. We'll see if Lucas has some time, but he's very busy. Chef Lucas, thank you very much for your time and sharing your wide experiences. It's super nice of you.
Our pleasure. Thanks for the time. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, let's move on. We're going to have in a moment as well Chef Amerigo sharing his perspective from Michelin star restaurant. Before that, we talk a lot with Chef Lucas about the cost of food waste, and I think this is a major component to cover if we want food professionals that are not sensitive about the environmental impact, that are not concerned about the social absurdity of food waste, that at least would see how the cost of food waste can resonate in this, I would say, business mindset. And this is why we spend so much time analyzing and guiding our different partners in understanding the cost of food waste to help to put the topic much higher on the list of priorities, because it's just cash that is leaking, that is going straight to the bin, as Chef Lucas was sharing. I'd like to share that quick video, which we love to. Well, I'm tired of it. I've seen it like 25,000 million times, but still very very illustrative of how food waste should be perceived. Yeah, I mean, the music is quite annoying. I give you that. However, it's nice illustration of the type of lens that you can decide to adopt or to put on when you look at food waste. Because food waste, as we raised earlier on, and as was mentioned by Chef Lucas, has different facets. So you have the cost of food waste that we would call direct costs. So the cost of the ingredients that you have purchased. This is the most visible aspect. In Singapore, you pay the bill twice, because all the food waste that is generated. So It's a loss. Financial loss because of the cost of the ingredients that were actually used. But you have as well to pay for disposable fees. So you pay two bills on your food waste. However, there are all the hidden costs, and some of them were mentioned already by Chef Lucas. So we're talking about labor, we're talking about utility, the energy, the water, etc. We're talking about wear and tears of your equipment that are being used for some food that won't be actually consumed or sold. Those are the hidden costs, direct hidden costs, I would say, for you as a food service operator, let's say, anywhere. But then there are all the societal costs related to food waste. We're talking about if you can visualize each of the steps that food is going through and each of the resources needed to produce that food, to package it, to transform it, to transport it, to prepare it, to store it, to serve it, and to dispose it, then we're looking at labor, land, money, water, chemical, calories, water pollution, air pollution, packaging, time that is basically lost. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation study on food waste and circularity was showing that for every dollar spent on food, there is $2 that the society is paying, both in terms of impact on health and the impact on all land degradation, all the loss of resources, as mentioned here. It's just ridiculous. If you look at let me take another example of the cost of food and the cost of food waste in the case of chocolate. Remember this dramatic 17,000 liters of water needed to produce 1 kilo of chocolate. That's just on the water consumption side. If you look at the overall life cycle analysis of what is the carbon impact of chocolate, 85% of the total impact of chocolate production is actually happening at the production level. And it's happening at the production level because it is heavily related to deforestation, land clearing to cut trees, basically, to grow more cocoa trees to produce chocolate. And this is something that we never think of when we are eating chocolate. I'm a big fan of chocolate. And this is hard because it means that it is a bad news when you're eating chocolates, which is something that you really enjoy. I'm having that all the time. I don't wanna make you feel too guilty, but it's something that I really encourage you to start thinking of. There are multiple components related to the cost of food waste. Now, if we look at your restaurant, your canteen, your hotel, whatever, there are easy ways to calculate what is the cost of food waste for your own operation. So let's take an example of a restaurant a la carte. Let's say you're serving 40 covers per day. The average in the industry, taking a conservative, I would say, standpoint, is around 350 grams wasted per cover. If we are taking a very conservative approach and we say that 1 kilo of food waste is only around $3, then we are looking at a daily cost of food waste of $42. So we are looking at $1,260 cost equivalent for food waste. And here, as you can see, 40 covers a day. It's a rather small operation. And for $3 a kilo, that means that we are more around cafe or bar or something with ingredients that are relatively, I would say, inexpensive. Now, if you take a bit larger operation, but not like those super large, let's say a five-star hotel, and if you take a restaurant that is serving around 200 covers per day, the amount of food waste generated per cover is a bit higher. It's around 500 grams, and that's the average in the industry. The cost of food per kilo is as well higher. So you can see that very quickly the bills start to pile up, and we are looking at already for only 200 covers a day. Is not like something super big. The cost of food waste, cost equivalent, is around $14,000 a month. So that goes very, very quickly. If you don't want to trust or don't believe in those data, there's a very simple way. You just decide for 1 week or for several shifts in a row to keep food waste separated from other type of waste. and then you weigh only once per day or once before disposing, and you keep those records. And then you make your own calculation. Okay, roughly how much is 1 kilo of food for me? And then if you want to decrease it because you think that most of it is unedible, you can. And then you will have your own figures. But I think that's one of the strongest way to really start realizing what is the financial impact of food waste on your operation. Now, a few tips. I'm curious to get your opinion in particular about, do you know what are the best options that are available to address food waste? And I know that some of you already know it, but if we're looking at food waste, what are the best options to tackle food waste? Starting from the preferred option. There are 4 of them. Please share if you know. I know that Sylvia, for instance, or Armand or Marigo, you know it already. But think about the same approach as the 3R, the 4R, or the 5R, depending on where you're coming from. But so either you unlock, if you wanna share live or send on the chat. What is the best options to address food waste, to tackle food waste? Okay, so Lisa Young, you said food waste can be used for compost as fertilizer, clean energy. That's actually, yes, but it's not the preferred option. It is indeed one of the options. What is the top number 1 option? Let me help you out. Almost. So Anusha, you said sell edible surplus to alternative platform. Eat only when you finish. Shorten the chain. That's different. Shorten the chain is really about the overall impact of our food systems. Here we're looking at the best option to tackle food waste. The top one is, how can we reduce? How can we minimize food waste? That's where you save on cost. That's where you save on all the negative impact. That's the most important aspect. Second aspect is, can you redistribute? Can you share this surplus food for people in need? Charity, food banks, all the apps that we know as well now that are being used. Third best option, can you feed animal? In Singapore, it's definitely not possible. In other countries, you can collect this food surplus and transform it. In Singapore, however, there is another alternative that is very interesting through black soldier fly. And I think there may be today one of the participants that is from Republic Polytechnique that we worked with in the past. He has run a project on black soldier flies, that are those flies that are eating the larvae, are eating the food surplus and the waste. And by growing, once they are big enough, they are being harvested and being used to feed animals. So you kind of close the loop. And the 4th best option, as was mentioned, is everything related to transformation, waste to compost, waste to energy, or upcycling of food waste. Those are the priority that one should clearly have in mind. Is not because you're transforming your food waste that you're addressing this issue. Is not, as Lucas said, when he moved towards like more advanced solutions on food waste, he had already his food waste management system. That is the transforming part. It is to get rid of it, but you're not addressing the root cause of that issue. So it's very important to keep those different steps in mind, because the end goal, the game here, is we need to come up with systems that are zero food waste to landfill. Strongly recommend you one Netflix documentary called Kiss the Ground. Fantastic. I didn't know until recently, until I watched it. I didn't realize how important it is for us to start thinking in terms of zero food waste to landfills, for all the benefit that we could get from it. Now, before I move on to interviewing Chef Amerigo, I want to dive very quickly on the topic of monitoring food waste. So we look at what is the financial impact. Now we need to know, okay, well, if we want to be a bit more specific, how do we monitor food waste? How do we, well, first, why? Why would we monitor food waste? We monitor food waste because we need to have answers to 5 key fundamental questions. The first question to ask is, why is food wasted? So for this, we have simple systems ranging from, we use 4 different categories: spoilage waste, preparation waste, buffet waste, and plate waste. Those will help us to answer the question, why is food wasted, by giving a direction, an indication of actually why is food wasted. When spoilage is because of storage issue, preparation, that means There's something happening when you cut, prepare, cook, etc. Buffet, that means all the food that remains on the buffet line at the end of the shift that is not reworked or reused. Plate waste is a good indicator of how much is actually wasted by the customers. So it doesn't have to be those 4 categories, but those are helpful, especially if you want to have more depth. And of course, if you don't have buffet, then you don't use that category. The other question that we are interested in answering is what is wasted. For this, we recommend to actually cluster, to make it easier to cluster food per types. So in our system, we're clustering what is dairy, what is meat, what is seafood, what is fruits, staple food, vegetable. We have another category called mixed. I anticipate your question being like, yeah, but if I waste some lamb, is not the same as chicken. Yes, that's true. The more depth you want in your analysis, the more work or resources you will need to allocate. So this system is on purpose starting simple and lean so it can more easily be adapted. So the type of food waste helps to understand the what is wasted, what is going to the bin. Then to implement a system, you don't need to have loads of cash. You just need to have simple stuff that usually are already existing in the kitchen, like containers. Bins, here we are talking in the context of a larger operation like a hotel, but if you have a restaurant, you don't even have to have new bins. You just need to have some posters and visuals. One scale is what is needed. You will need to weigh. By weighing, you or your team, you are connecting to the issue. If you don't go through it, it's time consuming, and we're going to talk about that with Chef Amerigo. This preconceived idea that I don't have time, I'm understaffed, it's not worth it, etc. Give it a shot. Give it a shot, because what you find out help to open up on the severity of this issue, and to actually do it, to weigh, helps those that are actually going through the process to connect with that issue. When you physically have to weigh 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 kilos of food waste on the thing, you do it manually, you record, you register this information, it sinks in, and it helps to change the perspective, hence, and then the behavior. So one scale is basically the only thing you need. You may already have it. And then you have 2 options, either the tablet, and I will show what is our system about. The other option is actually paper-based. Before we had a digital food waste monitoring system in place, our partners were using paper and pen. And I will share with you at the end of this webinar a free do-it-yourself food waste monitoring toolkit that includes those recording forms. So stay tuned. You don't need any tech if you don't want to. There are some simple tech components that I encourage you to consider because that would make actually your life easier. This is the technology that we have been developing that is called FIT, Food Intel Tech, that is enabling commercial kitchens to track and reduce food waste and associated costs at multiple locations. Very simple, very straightforward. 2 components. One component, which is an app that is running on any Android device, being a phone, being a tablet, so super low cost. You can have one or you can have multiple depending on the size of your operation. And those generic devices, because you can buy it anywhere on the market, are being used as data entry points. Then all the data that we mentioned related to how much, when, where, what, why, are being sent directly on the cloud-based software that does the data analysis. And those data analysis will help to answer those questions so you understand better your situation, your food waste situation, so then you can put the effort where and when it has the most sort of impact. Let me share a very quick video that gives a better overview of what is this solution about, and then we're going to move on with Chef Amerigo to get his perspective on the topic of food waste. Isn't it a funky music? Love it. So, Chef Amerigo. Hi, Chef. Can you hear us?
Yes. How are you?
Ah, cool. Thank you for being available.
My pleasure indeed.
You just come back from the south of Thailand, right?
Correct. Out fishing.
Yes. Tell us what you did yesterday night. No, not that part, the one that is shareable.
I was on the boat and we were fishing, exploring with some of our suppliers, their way of working and their way of after transporting to Bangkok. So we were checking on them, let's say.
Yeah. Was it
Yeah.
was it interesting?
Very interesting, and we were very happy with what we find out.
That's a good news, because I just watched, we mentioned it quickly, I just watched Seaspiracy. I'm sure that some of you have watched it as well. Must watch, and I take what you're sharing today as good news. Let me introduce you quickly to the audience. So Chef Amerigo Sesti is the head chef of J'aime by Jean-Michel Laurin, one Michelin star restaurant in Bangkok. Well, long history of fine dining for Amerigo, from Italy with a 1 Michelin star, then in London with the Waterside Inn with a 3-star Michelin, Le Normandie in Bangkok, 2-star Michelin, Le Inn at Little Washington, 3-star Michelin, La Côte Saint-Jacques, 3 Michelin star plus the Michelin Green Star. That's a lot of Michelin.
Yes, but it doesn't matter much when it comes to food waste.
That's true. Fantastic. No, I agree. Chef Amerigo, thank you again for being here today. I would like to start as well with a bit of a general question. What are your perspectives on food waste?
Well, not long ago, I must admit, probably was a little over a year, I started looking into it, and I was fairly quickly shocked by the numbers and seeing what was going around. And as I start digging in, I feel like I couldn't come back. As you see what's going on, and actually you realize the way you've been used to work for as long as your career took you, then you think that the problem must be addressed, and you need to rethink the way you work, rethink the way you structure your daily routine and your production in a kitchen, because you are totally missing the point. You can say that you are focused on ingredients, on techniques, on quality, on consistency, or whatever you would like to say, but at the end, if you're trashing the planet, you are not considering any of those, because you are ruining the things from the very beginning.
Interesting. That's actually interesting, because there are many people that tend to think, okay, if you are running fine dining, there is no food waste.
And I guess those people are fooling themselves.
What would you, how would you, well, try to be in my shoes, how would you convince them to that, well, they should be looking at it?
Well, the very first thing is just by start checking how much it is. If you cannot quantify it, you cannot realize what the problem is, how much it is. So if you cannot picture it, you don't see it. You have no idea. You can guess how much it is. You probably be wrong, as you said. Eventually, you will underestimate what the problem is, and you will feel like it's not your problem. So when you start looking, and checking how much it is, quantify and do it with your team, because that is also very, very important. Then you start feeling guilt, and when you start feeling guilt, eventually you start caring.
Interesting. So that means there is some sort of an emotional component to it.
Well, at least in my case, very much. I'm not really watching money, at least in terms of food cost or whatsoever, which is certainly a very interesting point, and eventually I should look into it more. But it is more really an ethical choice, is a moral choice, and I think everyone in the industry, especially nowadays, and especially in let's say the Michelin star field, or like fine dining, where chefs have a mediatic role, then we must have responsibilities, and we must have this position of showing what the path should be, and then redirect not only our team, not only ourselves, but also the public and our guests to maybe something that is more sustainable.
That's a very, very good point. You started around October to implement like the FIT system we were presenting earlier. Why?
Well, I just came across actually other restaurant in the world that they have this zero waste approach that unfortunately is still very few nowadays. And I don't know, I just felt challenged, and as I say before, I felt guilty because I saw that there was a problem within my kitchen, within my operation, and I just couldn't just keep going as I was going just the day before.
Can you share as well with the audience a bit of a sense of the size of your operation to other professionals to get a sense of?
Okay, so it's a fairly small restaurant. We have averaged, I would say, 30 guests a day, and we do both a la carte tasting menus. We used to be open 6 days a week, then we reduced because of COVID period. So someone might think, okay, then eventually our waste is not that important. At the end of the day, every waste is important.
Interesting. What have you seen, or what are the main learning outcomes of having a food waste monitoring system in place that gives you all those information?
So as I say, it helps you realizing the problem, the volume of the problem. And as you were saying before, by scaling it every day and checking it manually, seeing it, then you observe it more. Not only you, all your team, and every time you scale it, you see something and you wonder, like, okay, what I could do with this, and is really pushing your brain to focus on any single waste and what this could become, or how can you avoid having it ending up in a bin or in that waste separation. So it is really an exercise, has to be systematic and have to stimulate your brain, and you have to use your creativity into this field, and not only in again, technicality or beauty or whatever we normally consider as standard of fine dining.
What were the results of implementing this? Do you have any figures in mind?
Results are good, are still not always on a downline. As some months are static, some months we are reducing. I think it depends a lot on the volume of the work we're doing. We've been able mainly to let's say our objective is not to reduce waste much through the production, but more really in reviewing our menu, reviewing the way we design our dishes, because we want to take the problem ahead. Then once we, of course, design a recipe and dishes by using everything, at the end you don't have to manage your waste or recycle it, for example. I mean, if you achieve to don't have it, then you don't have to address the problem of what I can do with it, right?
And what would you say for those that think that, okay, doing so is not worth the effort, I don't have enough team or time to do so?
Well,
did you have the same reflection at the beginning? Or?
It doesn't really require that much time. It's really a simple exercise that everyone do in the kitchen, and it's just open your eyes on a problem. I don't know, on a single person in the kitchen, it must take 10 minutes in their working day. Is nothing, but it opened their eyes. It opened our eyes. And when we start doing it, we start seeing things and we start reflecting in a different way. And that's probably the most important part of the process of checking what the food waste is, because then you start thinking about it. You just not ignore it and think, okay, that's something that exists because I'm producing. You don't justify it because you say, yeah, of course I'm working in a kitchen, there will be some waste. No, you will start thinking, okay, this shouldn't happen. I need to rethink the way we work. I need to avoid having this end result.
Super interesting. Last question for you, Chef. Do you think that those that are proactively, as you're currently doing, like looking at your operation more holistically and clearly positioning it towards more responsible business, are they going to be the one benefiting from the change of perspective from the consumers?
Potentially, yes. I mean, that's how to say, is in a way, I think is a trend which is good, and not on another side. The fact that if it's just a trend is not good. If it's a trend that leads to an actual change in the future, that would be good. I believe that customers that are careful about ecology, about sustainability, they're also more loyal, and then you build a customer base that care about what you're doing, and it's not just I don't know, is not just a spoiled kid that is running around from a restaurant to another to see what's happening in the food industry.
Super interesting. Chef Amerigo, thank you very much for your time and your testimonial today.
My pleasure.
Talk soon.
Thank you.
So we have a bit less than 15 minutes to cover a few stuff. For those of you that were waiting for this in particular, what are the hacks in terms of cutting food waste? Well, you're going to be very disappointed. The first hack is raise awareness, as was said not only by Amerigo but Lucas, and that I've tried to repeat it and repeat. Raising awareness. Second, measure food waste as well. That has been covered by both Chef, and we saw a bit of how to do that. Bin dive, as Americo said as well. Face your waste. This is really a question of daring to look at it. Is very useful. And when you pile this up, from our experience, you can already reduce by, I would say, easy 30%. 30% reduction by raising awareness, measuring, very simple, as said, 10 minutes per day. Bin diving, just looking at it and start thinking. Then, of course, there are plenty of other ways, like we will share this link, 101 ways to use food waste, from the pickles to the kombucha to the fermentation to the This is not what we're going to do. It's not a culinary class here, and there are thousands of sources of information for this. But the most fundamental, I would say, pillars in addressing this issue are the one we covered just before. I would like to quickly look at existing grants. So as you know, in the context of Singapore and this green plan by the government, the government is as well allocating some funds to help food services to cut on food waste. So it is the Enterprise Development Grant that is basically to implement food waste management strategy that can be integrated into business operation. The grant is specifically designed for restaurant, bars, cafe, food courts, and catering companies, according to specific SSIC codes. with the Ministry of Commerce. You can check if you are within that category, and it can cover up to $10,000 qualifying costs, and they support up to 80% with a cap at 8,000 Singapore dollars. So that's super interesting. Basically, they are de-risking, removing the risk for those of you that are kind of hesitant, not sure that that the investment is worth or the output will be actually positive. They kind of remove almost all the financial risk, so you can give it a shot with very minimal, I would say, risk or financial implications. So those are the big, I would say, the big picture of it. The project has to run for minimum 4 months, with 2 months of food waste data collection. The application has to be received before the 31st of December. There will be, in terms of deliverable, food waste audit, food waste management strategy, the findings and the learning points. And ultimately, those are the type of costs that are directly covered by this sort of enterprise development grant. We're going to share with you, following this, for those of you that registered, we're going to follow up with the more details and how you can apply if you're a bar, cafe, restaurants, food court, or catering company, how to enjoy this government grant. Now I have the pleasure to share as well the floor with Chef Jesper Milano. Chef, are you here? I hope. Yes. So Chef, you're here. I'm going to share the screen with you and let you present what is the pledge on food waste to our participants.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jesper Miliano, and I am the Global Coordinator of the Pledge on Food Waste. And I would like to thank everyone for being here, and I'm very excited to share what is the Pledge on Food Waste. So what is the Pledge on Food Waste? The Pledge on Food Waste is actually incorporated in Singapore and was established by a group of academics, sustainability consultants, and experts on food waste. So it provides an expert and comprehensive framework to address the issue of food waste and its financial, environmental, and social impacts. It is a third-party audited certification for restaurants, hotels, and canteens designed to reduce food waste, save on costs, and nurture the local ecosystem. Food waste is one of the key global challenges, which is represented in 4 of the UN SDGs, namely 2, 12, 13, and 17. By addressing the issue of food waste, you are actually helping to address hunger, to deal with responsible production and consumption, as well as fighting climate change. So you have 95 criteria in total. So, and these 95 criteria are further clustered into 6 pillars. These criteria are the one that will be followed by the restaurants so that they are in compliance with the certification. Some of these criteria are compulsory, however, some are bonus points, and depending on at which the level the property targets. So these 95 criteria may seem daunting at first, but this is done fully online, and it is a guide to help to have a preventive system in place. So here are the pillars that supports the pledge. On the first pillar is envision, plan, and report. Commitments and policies by the top management and by the property is specified as it is the most essential. Afterwards, the planning stage and how to tackle the certification is done by setting up concrete and smart action plans. Lastly, reporting the achievements by meeting target goals are done by the property. Next is engaging the team. In this pillar, we highlight the importance of engaging the team with the message of preventing further food waste with cross-departmental responsibility, raising awareness, and staff training. On the third pillar, this is a very essential element. This is monitor your food waste. What gets measured gets managed. That way, you will have an outgoing understanding of the food being lost in the organization and better control. The fourth pillar is a review your processes. This is the foundation of the operations of the organization. Reviewing the practices that has anything to do to reduce food waste is carefully observed, ratified, and implemented in each department. This pillar focuses mainly on the best practices from purchasing to receiving to storage and its equipment handling up to mise en place and to serving a la carte or in a buffet. Next, it is kind of new for the industry to engage customers on the topic of food waste. That's where the fifth pillar comes in. This pillar is important in the context of ever-growing demand by consumers for responsible dining option. It also enables the restaurants to nudge them into eating more responsibly and reducing their plate waste. And last but not least, another very important aspect is that the pledge has been designed as a way to create the ecosystem of food waste solution providers. Who are the food waste solution providers? So they can be tech companies that are providing smart scales, that are providing softwares or even apps that are used to redistribute the food leftovers for consumption. It's like a too good to go, like or the 11th hour in Singapore. They could be also equipment providers that are supplying restaurants with biodigesters or other organizations such as food banks or big farms. So in total, 6 pillars, 95 criteria. There are some compulsory and bonus criteria. Once you have audited, there can be 4 levels of compliance, namely bronze with 74% compliance, silver with 86%, gold with up to 95%, and all-star that has 100% compliance. So the adopters will have an exact level point. So this is where the benchmarking aspect comes in. Ultimately, the pledge has one goal, and this goal is 0 food waste to landfill. After all the years of improving, the pledge is a system designed to help the organization to have the right measures to minimize food waste while enabling the ecosystem of food waste solution providers. That way, it is articulated is following the food waste pyramid. This is the order of priorities that one should consider. First is the reduction of food waste. Second is the redistribution that food for human consumption. Third is that for the animals, and if not, if it can be transformed. And ultimately is to avoid the food waste into coming into landfill, where it is not properly handled and will produce methane, which worsens global climate change. So we have some of our early adopters. So we have Marriott hotels in Bangkok, and we also have a proud 1 Michelin star restaurant and the Athene Hotel in Bangkok. These properties have enjoyed the benefits of adopting the pledge, which is cost per cover reduction, as well as food waste per cover reduction. And we are proud to say that Grand Hyatt Singapore is undergoing the certification process of the pledge. And here is our contact slide, www.thepledgeonfoodwaste.org. And thank you so much for your ears, everyone. And I hope you have a great day.
Thanks a lot, Jesper, for your time. I'm being cautious of there is only a few minutes before we have to jump off. So actually, we have actually 4 minutes for Q&A. If you have some pressing question, well, now is a good time. I need as well to share with you what are the what we're going to share after this workshop in terms of you know, we call it Christmas time, in terms of other freebie and benefits. Is there any burning question that you guys want to ask? I knew it. It's fine. We can then, if you do, at a later stage, please share. And then if you have a specific question, I don't know, Amerigo, if you agree, but if some people have specific question to you, if you agree, we're gonna send it your way. Same for you, Jesper.
Please, no problem.
Yeah. There's a question from Lisa. Is there any government involving your project? You mean if we are working with any government? We are working with destinations. So for instance, we have been working with the development agencies for cluster regional projects like GIZ recently over 4 different countries. We have a project coming up where we were working for 3 or 4 years with the Thai government, for which we design food waste prevention programs that were subsidized. In the context of Singapore, we're not directly working with the government. It's just like we're offering those solutions with the help of financial support from the government. We have as well a very interesting project happening in Mauritius with different local partners on implementing a different type of solution, combining the pledge, the food waste monitoring technology, building capacity, raising awareness, and as well building capacity of a local consultant that will then take on the responsibility of expanding the outreach. I hope it's helped to understand. I have 2 minutes to share with you that yes, it's Christmas time, another time during the year. We're gonna follow up with all of those of you that have registered, so you can benefit from different stuff. Free trial on Fit if you're curious to see how it works in your kitchen. Do-it-yourself food waste monitoring toolkit as well. We're going to share as well some vouchers for those of you that want to dig further and going further into the topic. We have various workshops where we spend either 3 times 3 hours or 5 times 3 hours to really get to the bottom of it. And there are some discount as well with our partner from the pledge. It is 4:29 here, 5:29 Singapore time. We're exactly on time to conclude this webinar. Again, thank you so much to not only the speakers, Chef Jesper, Chef Amerigo, Chef Lucas, I think had to jump off. Thanks as well to all of our partner, La French Tech, Grand Hyatt, Bisou, Survival Chic. Who am I missing? The Pledge, and I think that's about it. Never mention all the people, because if you forget one, they're gonna kill you. Anyways, I tried, I failed, it's okay, please forgive us. So it was a pleasure being with you. I wish we could interact a bit more, but thanks for your attention and your participation, and we hope to be in touch with you sometime soon. We're not gonna do the animal group picture, even though we love that slide. These are our contact details. We will be in touch. Thank you very much, everyone. Take good care.